Good morning. Hello, hello. I don't know what that is, Gigi. Reports of something emerging in the area. It sounds really exciting. Good morning, Alex from New Jersey. Welcome. It is Coffee with Tina. Good morning, Emily. Where we come together for connection, for support, for strategy. I'm the author of Divorcing a Narcissist and One Mom's Battle. People keep telling me you need to do an intro because it's just random when people come across your videos. So tell them what it is. The fine print, I'm just going to read at the beginning. I'm not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice, but if you are divorcing a narcissist specifically, if you are going through a custody battle with a narcissist, regardless of if you were married or not, this is the place you want to be, because we come together as a community and we talk about all things related to strategy when you are divorcing or in a custody battle with this type of person. So many of us are led by our emotions, and I'll tell you, I would describe that as myself during the first 2 years of my battle. Good morning, Jenny. It was only when I started actually sitting in the courtroom and paying attention to it that I realized the need for strategy. And that's really what a lot of this is about. My attorney friend Jeff in Texas says, this is a business transaction to the courts. This isn't emotional for them. And in fact, they are trained to check out of that. We could say a lot of things about judges. There are some good ones out there, but at the end of the day, this is just business to them. And that is a really hard thing for so many of us to grasp because these are our babies. What do you mean it's a business transaction? But unfortunately, that is, the quicker you can get to radical acceptance about that, the better off you're going to be. I'm just going to read some of the comments. Mandy, good morning from St. Louis. I am glad to know that the videos are helpful to you. LJ Austin, Kim from West Virginia, good morning. Thanks for joining us for Coffee with Tina. I want to remind everyone, all of the online courses are 30% off in honor of Mother's Day through the entire month of May. So there's safeguarding against alienation claims. If you are in the beginning stages of being accused of alienation, or if you are very new to this battle, that is always the course that I recommend people starting with, because this alienation junk science has literally taken over the court system. And good morning, Angie. You want to make sure that you are safeguarding your case from ever having to face those charges. Mediation with a narcissist, a lot of people will, say that it's a waste of time. I don't believe that to be true. I think there's actually some really valuable things you can take, and a lot of times our hands are tied and we really don't have a choice anyway. So you should go into it with a very strategic mindset. The documentation webinar, for those of you who have followed my story, I credit my documentation with why my kids are safe today. So I share my entire system. If you don't already have one, Divorcing a Narcissist 101. For those of you who are very new to the battle, this is the very 101 version. And then strategic communication. We have to remember that when we are in front of the court, they don't know either of us. For all the court knows, I'm the problem. I'm the pathological liar. I'm the abuser. They don't know either party. And so much of their opinions are formed by what they read. And so you don't have room for error when it comes to your communication with the high conflict person. You know, you have to keep in mind that everything you put in writing is for the court. It has nothing to do with the other party. If you are factoring them into your thought process when you're communicating with them, you are basically handing them all your power, and you will not present as well in court. You know, you want to be operating from your place of authentic truth at all times and weaving strategy into that equation. So if you need help with any of those areas, just go to the One Mom's Battle website and click online courses. It automatically will factor in the 30% discount. My sister, Renee, is on this morning. I just was teasing her. I was like, we need to do coffee with Renee. She has been a huge help to me lately in my business. And so I'm really thankful. Hello, Renee. And if my nephews are watching too, hello, nephews. I won't say your name. Good morning, Randy. Let's see. Alex says, I don't know how to get to radical acceptance when I have such little kids. Connect with a therapist who understands what you're going through. I know they're hard to find right now with COVID. It kind of opens the boundaries that we once had, where we used to be limited to our county. A lot of therapists will never go back to in-person. I know many of them who are like, nope, I'm now moving away and moving into the country, and I will never resume in-person sessions again. So, you know, really working with someone, Dr. Ramani's videos on radical acceptance, you know, invaluable. She is such a wealth of information. If you haven't watched her videos, you could do a marathon. You know, Lifetime channel is great, but Dr. Ramani is even better because it's education. Cases of beer in his car, that would probably be pretty helpful documentation. Good morning, Heather. I'm glad you're able to join us. I love when people come in. Good morning, Karen. Anyway, yes, sisters are the best. Shout out to mine. Let's see what else. I don't know how many of you were able to join Custody Piece and Jacqueline Franchetti and I for our big announcement on Clubhouse. I had never used Clubhouse before. It's actually a really cool app. And I think I'm going to do more Clubhouse stuff because I really enjoyed it. But we made a huge announcement. The three of us are partnering together. Jacqueline Franchetti, and for those of you, she has, you know, who follow her story, Kira's Law, Kira's Champions, she was just featured on NBC Nightly News. There's an amazing article about her advocacy work that has come into play because of the very preventable murder of her little girl, Kira. And so I'm watching this amazing woman out there just moving mountains, and I want to support her efforts. I have no desire to recreate the wheel, and when I announced my intention of going into the advocacy world, I feel like the stars aligned between Custody Piece and Jacqueline Franchetti and myself, and so I'm going to get behind what she's doing. We are going to try to get Kira's Law passed in New York. Christy Brinkley is on board with this, has been sharing on her Instagram account. I've been in communication with Christy about it. Huge supporter of what we're doing. I encourage you to get involved. This is your call to action. Even if you don't live in New York, you can help. All you need to do, think of who was my old college roommate. Did they move to New York? Aunt Greta, who lives in New York. Whoever it is, your partner's friend in New York. Send them the link. If you go to the One Mom's Battle website, and at the top you'll see Kira's Law on a tab, send that to them. And all they have to do is type in their address. It will pull up who their representative is, and they can send a letter in support of Kira's Law. It's done for them. It's an amazing thing. And so our goal is to get Kira's Law passed in New York, so that way it will make it easier to roll it out into all the other states. It will make mandatory training for domestic violence for judges, child safety, an absolute priority, which it should be. That's just common sense. So much of it is common sense, but it is the one bill that really gives me a lot of hope. And so I ask for all of you to, if you're looking for something to do. I remember in the beginning of my battle, somebody, I think it was Alex, mentioned her kids are so little. My kids were just under 2 and 4 when I started this battle. And on the days where I just felt so desperate to protect them and things were so dark, I just, if I did one thing that day to make myself feel like I was part of the solution, or I was, even if it was documenting for a half an hour, I needed to put my head on my pillow at night knowing that I was helping to protect my kids or other kids or whatever it is. This is a way where you can be part of the solution. And it's not a quick fix, but we need to break this cycle of family court injustice. And for you to be able to say, I had a part in that, is huge and it's powerful. And so I beg you to get involved. Figure out one way you can help to get Kira's Law passed in New York. So that we can bring it to all the other states. This is an international issue. We need to carry this over into other countries. This is not US specific. So, okay, all of that. We're going to jump into the questions. I'm actually going to get my second vaccine today, and I'm really nervous. I had bad dreams about it all night, and I'm not thrilled, but that's what I'm doing right after this. So let's jump into the questions. And all I should mention, Caden's Law in Pennsylvania. Get involved with that one too. Those are the two that I am really firmly behind, and they will absolutely make a difference. So, Caden's Law is another one. Reach out to Caden's Corner, see how you can support their efforts. Okay. The first question is, my 2-year-old daughter just started overnight visits. I'm broken. She starts screaming anytime we have to leave the house because she's afraid I'm taking her to her dad's. She's clinging to me if I even get up to use the restroom. And that is, heart to heart, mom to mom, that is painful. I've been there. I write about it. I remember my little one, pulling on my clothes to where I thought my shirt's going to rip because, having to hand her over to a monster, and, who was using them as pawns and weapons. And even if they can't articulate it at that age, they know this is not a safe person. And one of the things that I used to describe to the court is, this isn't about me, being a helicopter mom, being overprotective. My kids easily transition at preschool to childcare providers, to friends, to family members. We have no issues with separation anxiety. This is not that I'm, enmeshed with my kids to an unhealthy degree. This is that they are afraid of him because of his own actions. And that's all. I could do a whole segment just on this. I feel your pain is my point in sharing that. And one of the things that I will, share with you that was shared with me early on with my therapist said, Tina, I can feel your anxiety coming through. in the room. And it concerns me because if anyone ends up observing your exchanges with him, it's natural for you to become heightened and anxious because you're in danger, your body is doing what it's supposed to, but that will be used against you in court. And so she told me very early on, get yourself centered before the visits, before the exchanges. And because if you're going into court, and thank God she knew about the family court system, most therapists do not. I'm very grateful that she had that insight from her own life experience. But, she said, if you're in court and you're trying to say that your kids are anxious, they're going to say that it's you transferring your anxiety onto them. So number one, first and foremost, because we are the rock for our kids, we have to be centered and strong. There were so many times where I would drop them off, drive down the street, and cry the ugliest cries you can imagine. I know you get it because you do the same thing. But for our kids, we need to be strong. And so that would be my number one. Number two, my daughter's therapist recommended early on getting her a transition object. And that was for us a teddy bear. I took her shopping, took the girls shopping. I let them each pick out a teddy bear. And that teddy bear was a permanent object that they could take with them no matter whose house they were at. It does become a weapon in this, and the other party will try to play games with it. So the object may need to switch, and you may need to buy, if it's 5 really cheap teddy bears that aren't super expensive, that you don't care about, but that can provide that transition. That way, if they do play games, and I was very strategic in my communication with him right out of the gate, and that was, hey, Seth, I just wanted to let you know Piper's therapist highly recommended a transition item going, and I was careful not to point fingers that this is an issue with his side of the equation, that this was an object that could travel between both houses with her and, and give her some comfort during exchanges back and forth. So things like that, because, and then you can tell her, or your child, I think it's a little girl, when you squeeze the bear, mommy feels it. Mommy gets a hug too. Or the Invisible String book is a really good one. The Kissing Hand is a really good book. And things like that. My kids still remember one 4th of July where I told them, every time you see a pink firework, mommy's thinking about you. Mommy's sending you love. And so for the rest of their lives, they will always remember pink fireworks means mom loves you. So it's those little things. And when you are in this fight or flight mode, protecting your babies, it's hard to think of these things. I get it. And so if other people have input on this, please put it in there, in the chat. I am so thankful I was able to get my daughters into therapy very, very early on. They were probably 2 and 4 when we started with a play therapist. For those who cannot get therapy for their kids, I recommend you aligning with a therapist, a child therapist who can guide you and help you fill your toolbox. But be documenting all of these things, the regression, the changes in sleep, in eating habits, in your child's anxiety, getting neutral third parties who can also witness these things. I had friends testify that they happened to be at the coffee shop where we did our exchange just randomly because it's a small town, and they witnessed the exchange, and they were able to testify about how I handled the whole interaction flawlessly, handed the girls over, gave them one kiss, one hug, goodbye, and left. You don't want to drag it out because that can be used against you. We're under a microscope, and it's not fair It's not just, but unfortunately, it is our reality. Heather says, this is making me cry remembering how hard it was when my baby was 2. Thanks for sharing that, because it's hard it's almost like when you're potty training a child, you feel like that stage will never end. That's how you feel when you're in this, and it's painful. So good morning, Brenda. All right, now we're going to go to the second question, but if you have input, if you have advice, please put it in the chat, because I'll never claim to have all the answers. Okay, number 2. This one worries me, and I'll share why. I've started a blog to speak out about how my children are being failed. How did you protect yourself? I get these questions in a variety of ways a lot. If I could go back in time and do it all over again, I would have blogged under a different name. I would have chosen a fake pen name, and I would have kept it under that, because the reality is, depending on who your judge is, I've seen these things have an impact on people's custody. And yes, you have a right to free speech, but especially if you are in a pocket in the country that believes in alienation, it can be a little scary, because they're going to say at some point your child could view the material. I took so many precautions, which is what protected me. I did not keep any of my books at the house. I don't know if they still have this program, but it was canine parental controls on the computer. And I was able to block my kids from Googling my name. If they did, nothing came up. One Mom's Battle, the word narcissist, I had blocked all of these things so that they could never find it. And I still remember sitting in a restaurant one night, and this random lady came up and said, "Oh my gosh, congratulations on your book." And if I could have shot daggers out of my eyeballs at her, I would have, because I was in that complete thick of the battle, trying to protect my kids. I didn't even want them to know that I had written a book. And immediately my very bright little girl was like, "You wrote a book?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's just to help other moms who are trying to protect their kids." And but those things can be really scary. And depending on the age of your kids, depending on the climate of your local court system, especially with the alienation stuff, be really, really careful. Absolutely. So, yeah. So, and I don't know what the blocking software is available now, but back then, years ago, it was K9, and it worked really well. And like the one thing I was investigated for in our child custody evaluation was my work, my blogging, my books, and the evaluator was like, I checked all the boxes. I had gone above and beyond, and I even told him I didn't plan for this to become public. I call myself the accidental author and advocate for a reason. I had started my blog just so my friends and family could follow along, because I got tired of explaining things over and over again. So, I didn't set out on this path going, haha, I'm going to expose him. And I think the style of my writing also helped me tremendously. It wasn't a blog to bash him. It was a blog basically factually outlining my journey, what was happening in the court system, what was happening with my case. But it wasn't, I see some things where I'm like, oh, I don't know that I would write that. So just be really careful, and always check with your attorney before you do things like that. Most attorneys, that's where I'm glad I didn't have an attorney, because I would have been silenced without a doubt. That's it. So, okay, next question. Why don't you ever discuss female narcissists? Men are affected by this also. So this tells me it's somebody who hasn't followed my work very often or very long. I was raised by my dad. I am very much pro healthy parent. I try not to get caught up in the gender. I speak from my personal experience. I am a woman. I divorced a man, so my experience is what I speak about. And 99% of my clients are also women, and statistically speaking, men are more diagnosed as narcissists than women are by a landslide. And I am a huge fan and follower of Joan Meyer's work. And if you read the absolute research on this, it is moms being affected the most. And it's a power and control dynamic. You could just, put domestic violence itself on the table. Yes, there are women abusers. I just read a really good meme about this, and it was talking about, ticks. If you, and I'm going to totally botch it when I try to describe this, it's on my Instagram story. But it's just because, as women, we tend to become, we don't, we've been hurt by men. Statistics show that we have valid concerns about our feelings when it comes to this scenario, and abuse and violence against women. That is valid. It's backed by research. No one can deny that. And, it's that they use the analogy of just, I don't want a tick on me because there's potentially Lyme disease. It means, yeah, I am concerned about all ticks. And it was just a really simple way to break it down and have it make sense. But yeah, I'm a woman who has been through this. And I do think that, there are my mom was a very mentally unstable woman. I am thankful every single day of my life that she did not get custody of me, and that parental rights, that my right as a child to be healthy and happy and safe trumped her rights as a parent. And that's why I am so incredibly against parental rights. I don't think anyone should have a right to be just because you can procreate. That is barbaric thinking. So that's the nutshell version. I have dad clients, and they are some fantastic humans, and I'll stand behind them any day. But statistically speaking, this is an issue that affects women more, in terms of being the victim. So that's my soapbox. Let's see. Gigi says, statistically speaking, the male gender has a higher incidence of NPD diagnosis than female. Misogyny is also a factor in our society. Huge, huge factor. Dina says, Tina is so pro healthy parent all the way. I love your explanation, research, and experience. Absolutely. And that's what I stand behind. And if you aren't following Joan Meyer's work, go support her. I am set up on her monthly automatic contribution. Even if you can only do $5, it helps. And she gives me just like Jacqueline Franchetti and the work she's doing, Joan Meyer gives me a tremendous amount of hope, because we are missing that piece, the research piece. And Joan, if we can support her efforts so she can keep pumping out research that we can then take and use in our cases, that's where change is going to happen. So if you do anything this week to make a change in the system, become Kira's champion, become Kira's voice. Go sign up on One Mom's Battle under the Kira's Law tab and get involved in our efforts there. And then go to the National Family Violence Law Center at the George Washington University and see how you can support Joan Meyer's work, because that's what we need to make changes. All right, everybody, I'm going to go get my second vaccination. I'm needle phobic, so that's a huge part of it. Wish me luck, and I will see all of you next Friday. Take care. Bye. Yes, Santa Clara study. Dina, thank you for mentioning that. The Santa Clara University did a study about narcissists in the courtroom, and it is fantastic. You can actually get it. You can find it on the One Mom's Battle website. You're going to have to go through the tabs. I think it's under the resources or the education tab, but I post some of those there. Oh, let me answer this real quick. Sorry. Melissa, can you comment about the recent NBC segment about family court? Watch it, watch it, watch it. That's my comment. I watched it last night. They featured Kathy Sherlock, Caden's mom out of Pennsylvania. I had the privilege of meeting Kathy when I did my cross-country Family Court Awareness Month tour last November. And her story is tragic, and Caden's death was 100% preventable. We did, at One Mom's Battle, work with Eric Saltzman at NBC News to give them stories, to put them in touch with people, to help them behind the scenes, connect the dots and understand what is going on. I'm hoping they're going to talk about the alienation BS. I fed them a lot of information about that. Part 2 of the segment with Kate Snow is tonight, and I encourage everyone to watch it. But there's also a printed piece that features Jacqueline Franchetti and Kira's Law. What I would ask of all of you, and thank you, Melissa, for bringing this up, share this story far and wide. It is so hard to get the media to follow these stories and to weigh in on them or feature them. Some media outlets actually have absolutely solid boundaries. They will not touch family court stories. This is what we need. And they track these stories. So when a media story gets a ton of attention, a lot of comments, lots of shares, that's where they know, this is a topic that people want to hear about, and they read the comments and they pay attention. Share, share, share. Make your sister, your mom, your cousin, your pastor, everybody in the world share this story, because you can go to my personal Facebook page. I have it locked down, but I issued a statement basically saying this is not somebody else's problem. This is all of our problems. I can guarantee you every single person knows a child who is being forced into an abusive situation because of the family court. It affects all of us, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. And so when we comment on these stories and thank the reporters and thank NBC News for highlighting this issue, it's going to get traction and they're going to do more stories. So please, 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 you may not be able to speak out about your own case, but I encourage you to share the story so that other people have insight into what is happening and the courts feel the pressure that people are watching, because that's, a problem. All right. Thanks for bringing that up, Melissa. Important. All right, guys, take care. See ya. Happy Friday.